Hey everybody, so the NHL trade deadline is just about a month away, and today I want to talk about who I think around the league is going to be the biggest buyers come trade deadline time to look to add to their team before making a playoff run. Now, these certainly will not be the only teams buying at the trade deadline, and we might see moves from plenty of other teams. But these are the teams I think that are the most heavily invested in getting a deal done, making a move, improving their team, and trying to make a significant move for a playoff push come April and May, and hopefully for their team into June. So let's start in the Eastern Conference. Before we get going, I just want to quickly remind everyone to please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Both of those things greatly help out and are very, very much appreciated. So in the East, I think one is certainly going to be the Boston Bruins. And we've seen the Bruins waive Brett Ritchie, waive David Backes. They are obviously trying to clear some cap space. They are going to make a move. The Bruins need a winger. They need a scoring winger desperately on this team. This has been an issue now for a number of years. They have not been able to find an adequate person to play the right side on the second line. Boston needs some more scoring. They need some secondary scoring. I believe during the game on Sunday, NBC showed a stat. Boston has gotten 48% of their goals from their top line of Bergeron, Pastrnak, and Marchand. That's just outstanding that line is that good, but it's very, very troubling that they don't have really virtually any secondary scoring coming from that team. Almost all of their almost half of their goals are coming from one line. That is a problem. The Bruins need some secondary scoring. They need another line to step up and start producing offensively. We saw it last year in the playoffs. The Charlie Coyle line in the postseason, after getting put together at the trade deadline last year, played extremely well in the playoffs. Really helped out offensively and helped push that team on a Stanley Cup run, a team to the finals. They need another move like that. Now, Coyle this year has been good, but he's switching between center and wing. Sometimes he's in the middle on the third line. Sometimes he's, when David Krejci's out, he becomes the second line center. Sometimes he's playing the wing on David Krejci's right side when Krejci is healthy. They need a forward, particularly a winger. They need to add some secondary scoring in Boston. And whether that's the likes of Tyler Toffoli or Chris Kreider, or maybe going after J.G. Pageau, who can play center or wing, although I don't really think they need a lot of help down the middle. They've got to add some scoring, and I think we know Boston is a team that has made moves at the deadline, in the past. Made a couple of moves last year. They made the Rick Nash move the year before. They are not afraid to make moves. They're obviously clearing cap space with these waiver transactions. Boston is going to be a big-time buyer. They are looking to make a move, and it's going to be for a secondary scorer to come in and play second or third line and help them out offensively. Another team that's certainly going to be active at the trade deadline, I think, is the Pittsburgh Penguins. Pittsburgh is having an extremely good year this year, despite massive injury issues, losing key players for long periods of time to injuries, and Pittsburgh hasn't missed a beat. They're second in the Metro Division behind Washington with 67 points. They've been absolutely outstanding recently, 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. Pittsburgh is looking to make a Stanley Cup run this year, and they certainly have the team to do it. However, we do know that Pittsburgh is a team that is never shy about making deals, never shy in the trade market. They are one of the most active trading teams in the NHL, and I have no doubt that they will be heading into this trade deadline season a very, very active buyer looking to add to that team. I think it's going to be up front for them as well. I think they're going to be looking for a Tyler Toffoli type player, somebody who can come in and provide some secondary scoring. I think they're honestly okay defensively. Maybe they'll make a depth move on defense, but I probably not. I think they are looking for forward help, another scorer to add to that lineup. And again, Toffoli, Kreider, although I don't think the Rangers will trade Chris Kreider within division. Kreider could be on their radar. Jason Zucker, someone like that. Maybe even a guy like J.G. Pageau to come in. They're missing Nick Bjugstad. Pageau could come in, play third line center, and provide a lot of secondary scoring help there. Maybe a guy like Andreas Athanasiou from the Detroit Red Wings could come in, play third line role in Pittsburgh, and help them out offensively. I certainly think Pittsburgh has options. They are going to be in the market for a forward, and I do think that they at some point over the next month will get a deal done to add another forward to that lineup. And my final team from the Eastern Conference, who I think is a heavy buyer at this point, is the New York Islanders. And once again, it is for goal scoring. These teams in the East that are really looking to make moves need more goal scoring, and the Islanders certainly could use some help offensively. They've only scored 139 goals this year. That is not a lot at this point in the season. Now, the good news is they've only given up 130. They're one of the best defensive teams in the league. The problem is they don't have the offense, I don't think, that can really sustain a long, deep playoff run in the Eastern Conference. They're just flat out going to get outscored at some point in the playoffs if they do not add something offensively. Scoring's just been an issue for them. So again, all the same names that I've been talking about apply to the New York Islanders. If they want to go center, you have a lot of offense coming from J.G. Pageau this season. Andreas Athanasiou could possibly be a lower cost option to play and add some offense to the team in a more of a depth role. And then your big name wingers. Again, I don't think the Rangers trade Kreider within division, but Kreider could be on the radar. Certainly Toffoli and Jason Zucker come to mind as wingers who could come in and provide some offensive help for the New York Islanders. But I certainly think that the Islanders are going to very much be in the market for a scorer come the trade deadline. I think they are heavily going after and working the phones to get a scorer added to that team's lineup, and that would certainly be a benefit to them heading into the postseason. Moving on now to the Western Conference, I think your biggest buyer, I think, is going to be the Calgary Flames. Calgary moved Michael Frolik, traded him to Buffalo, which opened up a significant amount of cap space. I think somewhere around $4.5 million in cap space opened up for the Calgary Flames. That move was not done for no reason. I can guarantee you that they did not just get rid of Michael Frolik for a draft pick just because they wanted to. That move was specifically to open up salary cap space to add a scoring forward at the trade deadline. Michael Frolik only had 5 goals this year. At one point, he had been demoted to the fourth line. He was not getting it done offensively. Calgary knew that. They moved him, and they opened up space to go out and get a guy who can score goals. And I think that's 100% what Calgary is going to be looking to add at the deadline this year. Again, much like the Islanders, I think they're heavily going to be looking to add a scorer. They're going to be working those phones hard to get a deal done. They just need to take some of that pressure off of that top line of Lindholm, Monahan, and Gaudreau, and Matthew Tkachuk, another high-end scorer for them. But those 4 guys are accounting for most of Calgary's offense. They need some help. They need some secondary scoring. They need some depth scoring, and I think that's what they're going to be looking out for. So I'm with the cap hit and the amount of cap space they opened up. Chris Kreider, I think, is their number one target, the first guy that comes to mind at $4.5 million per year. I certainly expect the Flames to be heavily going after Chris Kreider. Also, Tyler Toffoli, Jason Zucker could be potential targets there if they want to add a forward. Possibly someone else as well, but I think Chris Kreider certainly is the number one target for the Calgary Flames this trade deadline, and I think they just want to bring him in, add him to that second line, and get him, get the team some help secondary scoring wise. The Edmonton Oilers, another team that I think is going to be heavily interested in buying at the trade deadline. There's no guarantee in any of these teams in the Pacific Division that they make the playoffs. Given the point situation right now with 4 teams at 57, 1 team at 58, and everyone just jumping all around as far as points go, and right on top of each other as far as who's in and who's out. Edmonton is going to be looking to buy. They're going to be looking to add. Once again, and this is a theme throughout the league, secondary scoring. Edmonton, similar to the Boston Bruins, heavily reliant on a few players for a large majority of their scoring. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl have put up a huge number of points for the Edmonton Oilers this year. The problem is they don't have a whole lot of offense beyond McDavid and Draisaitl. And heading into the postseason, you can't be a one-trick pony. You can't have just one line producing. You're not going to go very far. If Edmonton wants to make a run, and they're a second-place team right now, so I do think that they see themselves as a team that could make a run, certainly to the conference final, if not further, You need to add some secondary scoring there. Again, all the names I've been talking about as far as forwards go are on the table. Edmonton is pretty tight up against the cap, so there would probably have to be something going the other way as far as a roster player getting moved to open up some cap space. But Edmonton's got plenty of guys that they can salary dump in the bottom six of that team. So I do think Edmonton's going to be heavily active looking to add a scorer at the deadline to help out McDavid and Draisaitl. They also could use some defense help. Defense is always a thing with the Oilers that they could add to and make better. I don't think that's a top priority for them, but if a deal does come along where maybe they could cheaply get a veteran defenseman, I do think that could be a move that Edmonton tries to make. And finally, for the Western Conference, the Colorado Avalanche. Colorado knows that they have a team this year that is very young, but very, very good and could make a Stanley Cup run. They certainly have the talent to do it. And, they made it to the second round last year, had a very good postseason, have all of even their young players were all there last year for the most part for that playoff run. So they have that experience. They have that playoff experience now. And I think this year Colorado looks at themselves as a conference final or bust team, and maybe even a Stanley Cup final or bust team. So Colorado, I do think, is going to be heavily active at the trade deadline, not necessarily to make a big splash move, necessarily to go out and get a top-end player. I think they've got a lot of those already. Colorado, I think, is certainly going to be in the market as far as depth players go, as far as adding a veteran either on the back end, although they still have Ian Cole, who does a very good job in that role. They either on the back end or a veteran to that forward group who could really help out as maybe a third or fourth line guy and give them, another locker room presence, another good, solid veteran player heading into the postseason. I think that's what Colorado is mostly going to be looking for at the deadline this season. And the difference between Colorado and a lot of these other teams is Colorado has pretty good cap space. Colorado has cap space. They're not a team that's right up against it like a lot of the other playoff teams are. So, they have options to make a move, and I certainly expect Colorado to do something to improve their team at the deadline. So those are 6 teams, 3 from the East and 3 from the West, that I think will be heavy buyers at the deadline this year. They're certainly not the only teams that I think will be making moves. I think we're going to see a lot of depth moves this year, teams looking to acquire veteran players for their bottom pair defense role or bottom 6 forward group to just kind of boost their depth, give them an extra guy and a good locker room veteran player heading into the postseason. I think we're going to see a lot of that this year. And these certainly won't be the only teams adding to their group heading into the postseason, but I do think that these will be the biggest buyers, the teams most looking to add a significant piece to their group. I think, as we've seen, for most of these teams, secondary scoring is the issue, and that will be something that they all will be trying to address at the deadline this year. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe. Follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.